Good evening and welcome to the Finance and Advisory Board meeting of March 11th. Call the meeting to order at 7:07. Tonight we will have a presentation of the Georgetown Public School and the school committee recommended budget. We have the superintendent and chairman of the school committee come up and join us. And if you could introduce yourselves, and if everybody else in the school committee can introduce themselves to the folks at home.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Linares, chairman of the school committee. I know some of you, I don't know all of you.
I'm new. I'm Ashley. Here.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, very nice to meet you. I know Mr. Snow.
Snow.
Hi, Robin O'Malley.
Hi, Robin, nice to
Hi.
see you.
Jim Lacy.
Sandy Garrity. Joe Bonvita.
What?
What
are we doing?
Listening.
Intently
I'm sorry.
working.
And Mike Farrell.
Carol Jacobs, superintendent of schools.
Joe McWhorter, school business manager.
Maureen Paulini, school committee member.
Mike Winter, school committee member.
Ilana Pellet, school committee member. And Pam Lundquist, school committee member.
And we also have Gary Fowler joining us from Board of Selectmen.
Great. So just as an introduction, the overall budget request from the Georgetown schools is $13,932,226, which is a 2.61% increase. I don't know how you would like us to, if you would like us to go tab by tab.
Why don't you give us the highlights?
Yeah.
Okay.
The big 50,000 foot picture of
Okay.
it right now. And then that way, anybody has any specific questions, we can dive into those.
Great. So I would say in order to do that, the best place to start would be the letter that I wrote to the school committee, because that is how I explained what was different in the budget. And then the other document that's sort of helpful for that is, let me just see, behind tab D, there's a budget overview section, so that, those two things sort of work together. So maybe I'll start with sort of the budget overview, and then we'll backfill to some of the places that you might be interested in talking more about. So of course, as you recall, the way the budget's built is the first thing that happens is the school administration and I work together after having some direction from the school committee on what priorities would they like to see in the budget, because by statute they have a lot of responsibility for helping to set the strategic goals for the district and then overseeing the budget and the development of the budget. So we start generally with that, and then it comes. We work internally on that. We often work with. Mike will give us a number, or Sandy might give us some direction. We usually ask for, what would the FinCom like to see us kind of work within, because we're all trying to be this, working together as a town. And then we develop the budget, and then it becomes the superintendent's recommended budget, which is what this memo I'm going to talk to you about is how that came. And these budget overviews also speak to that. So when you see, the budget is based on, some things, my budget was based on a little different number than the school committee ultimately approved. And really the only difference between what the school committee ultimately approved and what we were recommending is just the $20,000 or part-time maintenance worker, which we'll explain in more detail for you. We were trying to work, I think Mike was, had some initial information that he was trying to work with, and we had talked about at department heads, don't come in with anything higher than 2.5%. And then if you do, be prepared to explain it in detail as to the rationale why. So when I developed our budget, we were working within those parameters. So my budget came in at 2.46%. And of course, that didn't include everything that we needed or that we had. But we were just trying to work with that number. And so when the school committee became the school committee's adopted budget, the discussion added that maintenance person. So that if you perceive there's a discrepancy in numbers, that's where that difference is. So one of the things we started with is what are the contractual obligations that we have already committed to. There were some units that were already in the middle of a contract, and then we're negotiating with the teachers, and the administrative unit has not finished negotiations as well. So the budget is based on a 2.5% increase that Mike had sort of initially asked us to look for. Salaries were set, as I said, and, so 2% increase for paraprofessionals and tutors, that's in the middle of a contract. And then the 2% increase for custodial staff and food services. And then, as I just said to you, you might have noticed in the budget, if you went through the details, that there's like 1,000% increase in one of those salary adjustment lines. That's where we put information related to, potential negotiations, sick leave buyback, any of those benefits that are part of what we have to pay. That's why that line went up, because when Joan, after we agree to the negotiations terms, Joan moves those specific monies into the right lines. So it isn't that the line increases by 1,000% because there's 1,000% more increases. It's because, at the adjustment of the budget previously, we've put them. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Then teaching and support positions are funded in whole or part by federal grants. So just for your information, we have this budget prepared for your review. But just 2 days ago, we learned from the state, as part of Governor Baker's budget, that they have completely eliminated the full-day preschool, the kindergarten grants. We actually have 5 salaries on that kindergarten grant that we don't have a funding source for at this point in time. So just so you know, that's something we still have to figure out.
And do you have a total on that?
$56,000. So if it's sort of interesting because, it's kind of like, what do you give and what do you take away, right? So, if the governor's budget said we're increasing Chapter 70 by $20 a student, so we figure that out, that I think on the cherry sheet it showed like $27,000, but we lost 56. So it's not going in the right direction. But I point that out in this particular bullet because, as you know, from studying our budget for years, we report to you on what we have in grants, and grants and revolving accounts tend to be more volatile. So again, I think, we can talk to you about any of those if you want, but it does tend to be, Title I continues to shrink. So we used to have about $60,000 on Title I, we're down to, in the 20s, 30s, it's 36. So it's just the nature of the economy and the state funding and how that all works. Special education tuitions, I know we've talked to you quite a bit in the past about special ed. I think you're now experts on how special ed works. But it's special ed tuitions and special ed transportation have been budgeted. We budgeted for a 4% increase in contract rates for existing students. However, Landmark, we just got information the other day that Landmark has asked the state for a tuition increase, and they approve them at 24% increases. So, we can budget 4, but that's not been realistic in terms of what actually ends up transpiring. But just for the assumption in this budget, we built in 4%. Most non-salary lines are level funded.
4% for special ed or Landmark?
Special education, yeah. So the non-salary, you always ask us about those. Those lines are virtually level funded, with the exception of maintenance contracted services, which has been reduced. And the rationale for that is that when we look at the projects that need to come on board, these are things that we have to actually hire somebody outside to be able to help us with. But since we're getting a brand new building at Pembroke, which hopefully won't need significant maintenance issues right out of the gate, Pearlie is in pretty good shape once we do the roof, and the interior has pretty much been upgraded, and then the middle high school is undergoing a renovation as well. So while we do think there's some need to continue to do some projects at the middle high school, we thought if we had to make a reduction this particular year, $25,000 was safe because of all the things I just explained. But it is assuming that it's reduced and everything else is level funded. No increases in athletics included in the budget as a result of the greater participation of athletes, but our back in the override that failed years ago, the 17 vote override failure just before I came, money that was in the budget for athletics was really moved to almost 100% user fee funding. In the override that passed for the schools, what, 4 or 5 years ago, we actually identified $65,000 to put actually in the budget to help with that, because it was really, parents were really feeling a tremendous burden. And then we actually take $33,000 out of school choice, and so we use that to offset. But our user fees are still over $400 a sport. And then some of our less expensive sports are in the high 300s. We're not the highest in the state, but we're really up there. And you know, obviously, I think, I don't know how you feel about athletics. I benefited, you know, from being able to play 3 sports, as did my brothers, for no user fee. You know, so
That's right,
and I think a lot of the skills I learned as an athlete are skills that I still use today. So we like to believe that that's part of an opportunity we want students to have. But we don't hit the budget for that, other than the $60,000 I told you about. Everything else is user fee generated. School's choice revenue, you know, that school choice is volatile, right? Because if you have kids that graduate, if you don't replace them, you know, if you're putting recurring expenses on school choice, which you should not and do not want to do, we have no choice to do that, other than so we can maintain what we need, rather than coming to the town and saying, if that money wasn't available, then we'd have to put another $150,000 in the budget to fund the positions that we're currently funding on school choice. So you'll notice, if you've gone through the revolving accounts, we do actually have recurring salaries on some of those revolving accounts, which is fine now, except with the exception of the preschool account, which we'll talk about when we talk about Pearly. That's very tight. And in another year, even if we just paid for steps for the young teachers, we won't be able to afford what is in that account now for expenses. We will have to cut, or we'll have to put into the budget. And one of the things we've done for the last 8 years is we've made those preschool programs 100% self-sufficient. Right, so they don't hit the budget every year for added expenses. Let's see, where are we? Current staffing and appropriate operational budgets at the Pearly and middle schools have been transferred to Pembroke. So you'll notice, if you looked through the Pearly section, all the zeros. It doesn't mean we're not, you know, that just means that we've taken all those things and shifted them, because one of the priorities in the development of this budget was making sure we could open the new school, you know, efficiently and with what we needed. So there were also some lines that were transferred from the middle school, because remember, we're moving 6th grade out of the middle school, so it's going to be a K through 6. So it was moving in a couple of directions. There are added positions needed for the transition to the new Pembroke, which I'm happy to discuss in more detail. Since you know about special education, you know that we have to staff it based on the educational plans of students. So we have, in that transition to Pembroke, we know we need additional teacher support for the students that are currently on ed plans. We're not building in extra support for kids that might go on ed plans. We're looking specifically at the what they call the grids, which is how much time does a student get with a special ed teacher based on their disability or their particular program.
And so the aides or teachers that are currently with those students, say at Pearly or
They're moving.
They're moving, and then you're gonna need more?
Right, so what we have currently at Pearly is a half-time person. But when the K and 1 move over, and then the added 6th grade, when we look at the number of FTEs we need based on the number of students who have what on their grids, we need a 0.5. We need an extra 0.5, which we couldn't have predicted unless we looked at the caseloads, because those things, as I said, with special ed, they change over time. Let's see. So the new Pembroke, which I'll talk about in a minute. The preschool revolving account continues to support the program, but unless additional revenue is generated, the expenses will exceed the revenue. At Pearly, if we were closing Pearly as a school, then we would just either shift all the staff or cut some of the staff. But chances are we would shift all the staff, because we're going from, Pearly has 200 and 90 kids, and Pembroke has like 490, right? So we're adding sixth grade, so we're gonna have 770 students in that school. So how we determine what is needed is we sort of work from ratios. So if we say that for every, 300 students, we need a secretary, then we go and look and say, okay, when I first came here, when we applied that ratio, we had an extra secretary at the middle school, so we reduced it. In the case of the new Pembroke, because we're keeping Pearlie open, we need to maintain a secretary there, because we got the preschool program there. So we need to maintain a secretary there. We also need to maintain a nurse there, because especially also if we're putting a senior center there, there might need to be situations that might come up. But the preschool program there, you'd be amazed at the sort of health issues that, we're dealing with allergies and peanut allergies and diabetics, kids that actually have a insulin pump. So there's a lot of kids that have certain medicines that have to be given at certain times that the law requires a nurse must give them. So we don't have the luxury like in the day when I grew up where you had one nurse who sort of ran around between 3 schools. That doesn't happen anymore because of the needs of these particular health needs, medical needs of the students. So we need to maintain nurse, and we need to maintain a custodian. We have a day and a night custodian. We've redirected the night custodian salary to Pembroke, so we're not gonna have a night guy at Pearlie. But we do have to have a custodian there, because not only if we bring the senior center there, we have all the central office people are going to be there as well. So every space should be, used, so we do need a custodian there. So those expenses, a few of those expenses do not fit in the preschool revolving account. So they do hit the budget for
But we
part
knew-
of their
we knew-
salary.
But we knew this last year, didn't we?
What do we know,
knew
Sandy?
that
I'm
these
sorry.
people were not gonna be moving because,
Well, we did know it, but we didn't account for it in the budget because obviously we were not there. So we did know, you're right, we did know. But the issue still is, the preschool revolving account was in such a situation where we didn't know what the amount of money was going to be, right? So these salaries they were in the budget 100% last year. So because we are trying to keep to the number
Right.
that we were asked for, we are putting them, part-time of them, back in the revolving account, which is causing torque on the revolving account. I mean, we have projected to have about $4,000, play, and that just can't happen. So that's why we are discussing generating revenue, not to put, aside for whatever we think would be wonderful to have, but because we want to afford the expenses we have. And the problem is that if it's so tight, next year, if the teachers on it are young teachers, which they are, they'll get a step and scale raise, and again, we won't be able to afford it. So we're either gonna hit the budget for it, or we're gonna have to significantly reduce services.
so right now it's half budget, half revolving.
For those 3 positions only.
Are you constrained on what you can charge people for that?
Well, we're gonna yes, 4 years ago, we had increased the fee by 4%. And we do a salary comparison, because obviously we're trying to be competitive, but at the same time, we don't want to be way high or way low. And we are right kind of in that sweet spot, but we are recommending Margaret Marr, the principal, did tell the parents at the preschool lottery yesterday that we are going to be recommending to the school committee on Thursday night a 3% increase in revenue. But you're right, you
That's
can
not gonna
price.
help. That's not enough.
No, but you can price yourself out of the market, I think is what you're saying, and it's also a program for, that the town, enjoys the opportunity to be part of. But we're not giving away the services, we're showing you in the revolving account what the revenue is and what the expenses are. But that preschool revolving account tends to be something we're concerned about. And then the bus contract, this was a bus bid year. So the assumption we made, we were originally thinking that we wanted to eliminate the double bus run. We're taking that off the table now. It's gonna compete with other things. So we are gonna go with our 5 buses that we have now. and try to figure out ways to continue to, you know, make sure that the children who are eligible to ride can ride. But we want to reduce what has been a practice for many years. Again, in that failed override, the buses were reduced from 5 to 4, but we actually need 8 runs. So we have 5 buses, but we need 8 runs. So what used to happen when I first came here is that the buses would go out, pick up half of the kids in town, drop them off at school an hour early. We would pay people to babysit for them. And then the buses would go out and get the rest of the kids and then drop them off like 10 minutes before school started. The end of the day, the same thing happened. So there were kids who got out of school at 2:45 and did not get home till 4:30. Now, I'd question the educational value of that. And so what happens is the parents pick up, and that's why poor Elm Street suffers from 200 cars every day, because people they won't leave their kids there unless maybe they're a working mom or dad and it's convenient for them to have their child come home at 4:30. Most people pick their child up, or if they don't participate in our little programs that we've set up. But we're going to take that off the table. The important thing that does impact the budget is that when we went out to bid, we budgeted a 5% increase, thinking that it's probably likely that the cost of the transportation is going to come in higher than what we've been paying. Sure enough, we got one bidder, the one we currently work with, which is North Reading Transportation. We feel that actually that their bid was quite reasonable as far as bus bids go, right? They kind of corner the market, right? They have you over a barrel a little bit, because when they're the only bidder, and we're too small for bigger bus companies to really care about us. But the actual increase to maintain just the 5 buses that we had
On a double run.
is $38,000. So we had to cut things to get that $38,000 in this budget to not exceed the number we were trying to hit. So you should just know that's how we're going. We're going with that. So you know, you see the overview back on the first page of my letter. And the numbers are a little different because we're asking for that, not a 2.46. But the number I do want you to sort of think about a little bit here is the special ed number. Because when you understand where the non-salary -5 comes from. That came from that reduction I told you in the custodial consultants, or what do they call it? Maintenance contracted services, there we go. So everything else is pretty, but the 10.2, the -10.72, I want to be very clear. That doesn't mean the special education costs for tuition and transportation went down. In fact, when you flip to the tab in here that talks just about special education, and you look at the graphic, you will see that it actually has gone up significantly.
But on the summary, it says it went down.
This is.
Yes, because I'm gonna explain that, Sandy.
Okay.
Because what we're doing to hit the number, again, is we are applying circuit breaker reimbursement funds. And how we get those, if you recall, is when students that are very high cost, higher than $39,000.
Hi, come on in.
Then higher than $39,000, there's a process and a formula that you pay for that child. The following year, you get a reimbursement based on a formula for those kids only.
Right.
So if the child doesn't cost $39,000,
Right up here, Matt.
then you don't get any reimbursement for it, but you still have to pay for the cost.
Right.
Okay? So, and it doesn't count any transportation. So it could cost a lot of money to transport, but, so in the summary page that is in the special education section, I'm gonna work in round numbers because it's in here, but we spend roughly $1.4 million for 15 students, and we get reimbursed $350,000. So that means that we have had to actually pay those costs. That's the point. And what we're doing in this budget is to offset the cost of the increase. We're applying circuit breaker funds.
What would you normally do with the circuit breaker funds? I would think
That
you
is
would
what they're
do-
for.
We do.
Oh,
That
okay,
is what
yeah.
they're for.
We're actually applying 100% of circuit breaker, which
Oh,
is not
okay.
what we usually do because.
Oh,
we
you're trying to
usually-
save some in case something
Because-
bad happens,
Well,
right? Yeah.
Right, because
Okay.
we don't wanna come back to you and say, like we had to at one year, that the town was very generous to us and said, okay, and we tracked those students in one line, so we could, say to the town, thank you so much, we aren't gonna put it in our budget, it's gonna go in this little line, and we're gonna track it, and you can watch it. So we don't build into special education in our budget extra kids. So what many districts do, I'll share the little secret, is they'll say, we don't want there to be a problem here. We anticipate that maybe we might have overages. So we're just gonna identify and build into the budget 1 or 2 tuitions and 1 or 2 transportations. But if we did that, then we would end up having to cut services in order to hit the number that's gonna be comfortable for the town.
Right, and then, but now if you have an issue,
You know what we do? Seriously, we cut we freeze the budget. And then over the course of the year, the things that we had hoped to budget and to spend, we don't. Or in this case, we use the circuit breaker. So it's, to me, I think I might have said it here, but I say it everywhere else if I haven't said to you, because I think this might make sense to you. Circuit breaker is the snow and ice for education, right? Because we can't control the cost. It's volatile, right? We do a good job with projections, but there are sometimes kids that move into the district, they come in, they've already got an aide on their IEP, so we have to hire the aide. And over time, we work with families, and because you've heard me say, we've built all of our own in-house programs. And actually, it was interesting, I just was listening to it at the legislative breakfast Mike organized. I was noticing that in Governor Baker's budget, they were talking about maybe in the future looking for, in the Chapter 70 formula, some allowance for districts that try to help themselves by creating in-house programs and not waiting till kids need the most severe, placement and then giving reimbursement for that. So we'll see how that goes in the future. But special education is offset by circuit breaker. So that's the main point there.
This special education is everything but out of district. This 866, is it?
No, that is out of
886?
district, Jim. That is just the 15 kids that we have.
886 is
Right,
just,
but,
oh,
but
okay.
those kids
Let
cost,
me see.
yeah, let's go to the right tab.
What tab?
Well, let's just see here.
do you have that extra school budget book?
As a Mary.
Special education.
The total special education budget
M
is
is-
one
Which
point
tab is
four.
it though, Joe?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Andrea.
M or N?
M, as in Mary.
I meant M, okay,
Okay.
The total special education budget is 1.4.
right.
1.4, okay.
Right, and if you look at that chart, so the chart on this page,
Okay.
you can see the calculation is 75% reimbursement. In Governor Baker's budget, they reduced that number slightly. So it won't be a reimbursement of 75% anymore, it'll be a little something smaller, although I don't think I caught the number. I don't know that they shared that.
One year it was 72%.
Right, but you can take a look at, student number 1, there's the tuition, there's nothing in the column for transportation, because we don't get reimbursed for that. The total cost of that student,
okay.
less the
This is-
circuit breaker, right, and there's the reimbursement. So if you look at the totals at the bottom, you see, as Joan said, 1.312, 395, but
You get
438.
438 back.
That's right.
So you still spend
Right.
almost.
So I just think that's
million.
helpful, but that's why I say it's the snow and ice, right? Because, you don't necessarily know how that's gonna work. And the goal is, we don't want to, like you said, have to freeze the budget or come back to the town. So it is kind of it is what makes it a little difficult to get the budget to be completely as stable as we'd love it to be. So on the second page, I just explain briefly what the salaries are, with the increase in salaries. We've had people retire over the years that, retire at a higher salary, but we hire young teachers at a less salary. But because of the way funding works for education on salary scales, they also get a slight step increase as well as the percentage increase. It still doesn't cost us for them what it costs for one of the more senior teachers, but it is reflected. So what that increase represents is, for example, $200,000. So if you were to say to us, Carol, you have $200,000 of new money that you can work with. Our step and scale before we give anybody a raise is $200,000. So that's just to give you a perspective on that. And also, this is just an interesting thing that maybe you don't know. When teachers are getting certified these days, they have to get a master's within 5 years of their initial certification. So what we find is that a lot of the people who are coming in applying for our jobs are already coming in with a master's. Or we know within a certain number of years, so we have more young teachers, but we also have more young teachers on the master's scale,
So
which
they're
pays
further
more.
up the scale.
That's right, that's right. So that accounts for that. Special ed, I don't think I need to say anymore. You kind of got that picture. New positions. Okay, so so 3 new
Second
positions.
page of the
Second
letter.
page. I'm just going through the.
Under tab A.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So
Back to A.
Back to A. All
right. So as I told you, the issue with the revolving accounts is a little tenuous, particularly at Pearlie. So one of the things that we're trying again to do to hit the 2.5 number or less, if that's where we need to go, is we need more money to be able to function in that capacity. So one of the things that we discussed was creating a faculty daycare that would be a cost to the faculty. And the reason for that is again, it's a revenue generator, but it also does help our young teachers, because obviously we want to keep our good young teachers, and this is a little bit of an incentive for them to, continue to do that if they can bring their children. It would only be, well, I shouldn't say it would only, it would be for infants, a certain number of infants, because we can't manage 13 infants, but a couple of infants, and then up to 3, because at that point, teachers, kids tend to go to nursery school or preschool, so it would be a very narrow window of students, and where Ipswich has a program, Arlington has a program like this, so we've been sort of trying to assess that. I did a needs assessment to see how many of our faculty, if we did do it, how many would be interested, and then we're looking into what's that amount of money that we would charge. The goal of that, again, is to provide money to put back into that pot, so that going forward in 1, 2, 3 years, we're not going to be hitting the budget for things we can't afford to hit, and we're also not we're not cutting things from the preschool program that the town has been counting on for years. And so that's that. And then one of the other things, again, to control special education is we have students that we're responsible for students all the way through their 22nd birthday. So some students graduate in high school and they move on, but some don't. So the law has certain requirements about what you need to do to provide for those students, including work opportunities and job coaching and all those kind of things. So one of the things that we know in our forecast that we're going to have some students that are going to need to have that program, and we know we're going to need to pay for it. So the question is, do we house the children in-house, which we really would love to do because this is their community, or do we pay a pretty high cost to put them in an out-of-district program that meets their needs? Our goal was, if we could keep them here, then one of the things we could also do, because we're not the only school district that's got this kind of a challenge, is if there were other school districts right in the immediate area who have children, because we're low incidence, they're low incidence, if we could partner and we could collect tuition from those students, provide a program for, anywhere up to 8 students, then again, that revenue could go into helping us plan for special ed and offset costs, so we don't have to freeze the entire budget if we have a special ed expenditure, right? Because that's what we do now. right? That's where we go. We say, okay, sorry, we're freezing the budget in November. And then we might thaw it in April.
So where do the students that we're responsible for right now have this program?
Well, we're getting ready to have it. We don't
don't
have
have
kids.
anybody right
That's
now.
right. So
Okay.
one of the things that, like, for example, several years ago, we had a wonderful elementary autism program. And, all of a sudden we're saying, uh-oh, what's going to happen when they go to middle school? Because we don't have an autism program and they need it. So our choices are simple. You either outsource, you put them out to another school to the tune of about $100,000 a student, perhaps not including transportation. So if all of a sudden you have, let's just use the number $500,000 for our 5 students, not only do you send them out of their community, which is not our goal, okay, but you now, where are we going to get $500,000?
Where are they going right now if we have to take care of them now?
Well, that's it. We're getting ready to.
17, right, they're like
They're
17.
going to need a program. That's why we're
Is
looking
this
to
brand
build it.
new? This 18 to 22?
No, that's always
Oh, that's been.
So
We just don't have
we
any
never
kids.
had students in this program?
no, because what happened, Sandy, I think, is they always went out. And
They graduated, you mean?
they
didn't
didn't
They went out of
graduate, or they went out of district.
Oh.
So what we're saying is, no, because now we have these programs K through 12, right? So we know in our Compass program at the high school, we're going to have, a core of kids who are going to need this program. So we want to deliver it in-house, right? Rather than pay to have them go out. And so the question is, if we were to work in partnership with another district to be able to bring in a few kids, we'd have a full program, but we would also offset our costs.
So you're saying 8 students would make a full program?
I'm sorry.
8 students would make
That's
a full?
what the special ed director, and we may not be able to put this together for next year because we might not, we're looking to the future, because I think just as the town is looking to the future, right? You know that you're going to need money going forward, and what's the town's strategy for increasing revenue unless the taxpayers have to continue to burn it? Well, we're in the same situation, right? Our budgets have grown, 2 to 3% every year, which I know seems like a lot, but as far as school budgets go, I'm doing some research. It's a pretty modest. We heard that, Sandy and I, the other day. But at the same time, we're trying to help ourselves. Believe me when I tell you, it's not money that's going into some slush fund somewhere. We're very clear about what we're targeting.
There's legal restrictions on the money.
Right.
Yeah,
And the only reason, well, I shouldn't say the only reason, part of the reason why we're doing it and thinking about it now is we have space. Right? We wouldn't have space, right? We wouldn't have space to do it. But we do. And so, like, in that wing where the preschool are, 2 kindergarten classrooms get vacated. So we're adding another preschool, because that's also going to generate revenue, and the town has a need for it, and there's an interest in it. And then we're using one of the rooms for the faculty daycare, both of which we expect to generate revenue that would go right back into the Pearly school budget.
How many rooms does that leave for the senior center?
So the school is sort of set up in sort of, I'd say, 3 major areas with 3 separate entrances. So the preschool kids everybody from the preschool will enter from the kiosk on the side, the new kiosk. So the secretary will move down there and sit right there. So she lets everybody in. That whole area in the preschool is completely preschool. The front door will be anybody coming to the central office. So my office will, be there, the business office, the curriculum directors will come over, the special ed director and her 2 secretaries will come over, the technology director will be, all of the central sort of services people will be in, I'd say, the middle of Pearly, all in that sort of core area. Everybody needing central office business will come in to the center of the school. The senior center is, if you can picture, is the wing that goes off to the edge. So the senior center people, because it's flat, will come in on the side entrance that we use now for our before and after school care program. They enter, and then that wing will be designated for them. Colleen would like to have the first classroom. So you'd come in and you turn. Colleen would like to have the first classroom divided into offices for herself and her office staff. so that seniors could be greeted when before they came down the hall. So there are 7 spaces there in that space, in that hall, and the senior center will use 5. So they'll use, Colleen's got it all laid out, like in terms of what rooms are gonna be activity rooms, and then I think she wants to build some offices in a couple of the classrooms on the end for like special people who help
Taxes,
taxes, not people who live there every day, but people who come in to support the seniors.
Right, and in our conversation with Colleen on Saturday,
Yeah.
there were originally 7 rooms available. You're just saying.
No, there are
are
7 rooms in that wing.
There are 7 rooms in that wing.
Correct.
5 may not be enough for the senior center. So,
Well-
and I'm just gonna throw it out here
Yeah.
right now. You're talking about using 2 spaces for faculty, children, and out-of-district people from other towns, as opposed to seniors in this town.
Well, I'm not sure that it's that linear, Sandy. You know,
I mean, it's just-
I think we could probably have a longer conversation, honestly, about senior center. We've kind of been over this like 3 or 4 times. And our last conversation with Colleen, when we presented this, she felt that the 5 could work. She actually developed the plan. And the goal always was to say, if you need 7 eventually, then we will talk to you about it. But we're also transitioning, so we have things that we still need space. For example, we have new technology that we're getting in. Right now, we've got technology that's sitting in hallways because we have no place to put it. So one of the things we did is we thought about, well, if we need to use those 2 spaces at least for the next couple of years until Colleen's program continues to build, because she's predicting it will. What 2 things could we put there that would both help us and would both potentially help the senior center? So one of the things we've been talking about is if we put our technology office there, so that would be a place where, repair of, computers could happen, parts could be stored. The technology director could, we're talking about setting up a program for kids at the high school that want to kind of go into sort of that tech field, that they could have a workspace. And that would benefit the senior center because they're going to want to do some things with technology. Our staff could be there and could be a great help to her, right? We're also talking about, there's a computer lab upstairs that we're going to leave a lab that, those are portable laptops. If she wanted to work with us on that, we could figure out how to share that space because we won't need it every single day for professional development and training and things that we might use it for. So we talked about that. And then the other was sort of a maintenance spot, which I expect that, there may be needs that the senior center might have for, maintenance kind of questions or assistance. And Mike also is looking to have that space be, again, like more of a workshop kind of space because they don't have any space. I mean, their parts are all over the place. So this would give them a designated spot. And one of the things we did talk about was we've got a wood shop at the high school that we're going to transition away from because we're creating that wood shop is now going to be a classroom music space and an art room as part of the renovation. Because when NEAS came, they said, why do you have your choral teacher teaching on your stage? Which means we can't use our auditorium most of the time. So we're trying to accommodate for that in the design. So there's no wood shop. There'll be AutoCAD, computer-based kind of thing, but there's no wood shop. However, Mike and his guys occasionally have to use some of the tools. So I don't know if we're going to sell some of them or, we're not running a full-fledged, I want to make it clear, we're not running a full-fledged wood shop there 100% of the time because that, first of all, that wouldn't belong there. But some of the machines may be stored there and may occasionally be used, not necessarily when the senior center is open, but I don't know. And the other thought we had was, would there be any way that at some point, depending on what the programming is, if the seniors might enjoy the opportunity to do some woodworking, perhaps there. It would be there. There wouldn't be any reason why they couldn't, I wouldn't think.
So it's not used for classroom space? The wood shop is not for classroom?
No kids are in that space. That's 100% the senior center space. The only people who would be potentially there would be Wes, our technology director, or Barry.
Or the wood shop, are you teaching
Oh.
classes in the wood shop?
Currently,
No, if you move to
No.
Pearlie?
no kids, that's only for the maintenance, that's all it is maintenance. And again, we tried to think about, like, what don't we have space for right now that we need, and how could we put something there that might potentially benefit the seniors? And then, obviously, as time goes on, you know, it's fluid, right? So if there's something that, comes up and, you know, we really need to, you know, have more space for the senior center, well, then maybe we can make some adjustments. But we're talking about going forward. Colleen, at least that's what she indicated to us, that she could work with the 5 rooms. She just needed us to help her with the offices. And then she would have, and the other thing is, we said we'd share the cafeteria space, right? So she has events and things that she needs to do. We also will have to serve lunch, but it's easily worked around. And then the gym is another space on a scheduled basis that we could use. She talked about needing board meetings. I said, well, she can use the room upstairs. That's gonna actually be a conference room. She just needs to tell us when she needs it, and she can run the board meeting there. So I think we spent a lot of time sort of talking about how we could, you know, set Pearlie up in a way that both met the district and the town's needs. We wouldn't wanna put a wood shop over in the preschool area. That just wouldn't make sense. So that's why we've tried very deliberately to figure out, you know, we only want the preschool and the little guys over. I wouldn't put the 18 to 22-year-old program with the preschool. Right? So that's why Pearlie is gonna be a busy place, eventually. But we do have, like I said, some expenses there to keep it open.
What's going on with the second floor?
The second floor is going to be set up in a way that it's going to, our curriculum operation is gonna be up there. So like right now, for example, when we have a professional development day, we have no place, people are all over the place. We have no place to go. So our goal would be in that middle room.
The library.
We,
That used to be the
The
library.
library, the middle room would be, you know, a place where we could run professional development.
Okay.
There is, one space where the teachers eat currently, that would be a conference space, right? And then, we're gonna put sort of a little, divider up, because we wanna be able to use that, you know, where you don't know if you know the familiar, but, you know, the place where the kids can sit on the stairs and the librarian could read to them. That room will be another, you know, training center. So like, when Julie DeRoche, who's our curriculum director, runs her vertical teams, which are teams of teachers to work on curriculum, right now she has no place to do it unless, and when we run certain things, we have to close the library at the high school, which is not a good thing. So that's what we're planning to do up there, Wayne, and there's where I might put the 18 to 22-year-old program.
On the
Because
second
it's,
floor?
yeah, because it's off in its little area. The other thing that I was thinking about was, those are also spaces, you know, I'm always, reminded of the fact that there's never enough meeting space in the town hall for groups. I don't have any problem figuring out that why we wouldn't be able to make space available to town departments or groups, like if Chief Beardsley wants to run, you know, fire training, which he's talked about in the past, and he always asks me if I have space, and he knows I don't currently. But, you know, in this case, I would. So the goal would be to make Pearlie a place, you know, that we might be able to, you know, free up some things that the town might not have space for right now. But that's the goal upstairs, is to create a place where could be meetings and offices and those kind of things. So that's Pearlie.
Sounds like the parking situation at Pearlie's still gonna be a difficult.
Well, you know what, it probably is, Wayne, it is. But you know, out back where we have the playground, that's all tar, there's tar out there. Well, right now, we can't do much out there because the kids play out there. But if the students in the preschool are playing in the preschool side and on the preschool, you know, playground structure, it may be that we can set up parking out back as well. So that, we are talking about that, cause that is a tough spot to park any way you cut it.
Be
Well, I
careful with some of those seniors, they have trouble
Well,
parking.
that's the discussion, see, that's the devil's in the details, right? So that's the discussion we're having with Colleen, because on one level, we were saying, well, gee, Colleen, wouldn't it help you if we had like 75 parking spaces out back, and then people could just walk right into the cafeteria and access the senior center that way? I think her preference is to have it be out front, but there's only so many
To rent that
spaces
many
out front,
spaces,
so
yeah.
I think those are the details we have to work out. We don't have the answers to all that, but we're very happy to be able to use most of that space, to get her up and operating and, support, what she needs to do to get it started, to have a designated space that is not messing around with anybody else. The other thing we thought was nice is that it would give us the opportunity to do some intergenerational kinds of things. Because right now we have some seniors who come in and read to our kids. They're being in the same building with the same proximity, even though they're distinctly separate and they can be kept distinctly separate. It affords some opportunities that, I think would be really nice.
Right, I think that there probably needs to be, based on our conversation with Colleen, there needs to be more conversation with
Oh,
the
yeah,
senior,
absolutely.
with Council on Aging, with the Board of Selectmen, and going forward, because I think once the senior center does get over there, not only are the seniors in town within the next 10 years going to be probably more, I believe Colleen said, more than the students in the school.
Right.
The seniors have paid for everything in this town. They've put in a lot of years. And I think with the senior center being in one location, it's probably gonna be a lot busier, and I think 5 rooms is great for now. I don't think 5 rooms is
Right.
gonna cut it.
So that's the conversation, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've never closed the door. When we decided to move K, because when we first did this, there was discussion about, well, why don't you leave K at Pearlie? And for educational reasons, I obviously explained that, kids start their formal education now with standards-based education, whether we like it or not, in kindergarten. And so what you don't wanna see is people who send their children to preschool come to kindergarten for 1 year, and then we have to transition to this. That just doesn't make sense. We don't like it in first grade. Why would we wanna do it in K? So kindergarten, when that decision was made, immediately I'm thinking, that's great, because the senior center, I've been working with Colleen in the senior center, and they've never had their little home. So, school committee and I talked about it, administration and I talked about it, and we're really delighted to welcome them and to work with them. I mean, it really, but I think it's, like you said, it's, the devil's in the details. So we need to sit down and figure out, Colleen needs to figure out how she wants her spaces. But we need to know from her, we have to talk about security, because parents will ask, how are you gonna do security? We have to talk about, she's got some needs for some spaces for her wheelchairs, and, we've got, I think she wants to run a food pantry. Okay, so we'll talk about that with her. So we've already started some of those
Good.
conversations, we just really have to, and remember, the other thing I think she probably told you is, the goal would be to open it in January, because we're in the process, as I said, of renovating the middle high school.
Right.
That renovation will go through the fall, so if I need swing space, I need to have a swing space. So she was very understanding about that, so we would have the fall, in the summer and the fall, to, be working out the details,
Right.
figuring out what needs to go up, and, and working on, sort of like, well, how are we gonna build the walls? Are we, I have to say that I know, in talking with John Mativier, we can't just go slap up walls. There has to be a design, because
there's already a licensed contractor for free on board.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know if that was gonna happen, but I know who you're talking about, and I thought that might help. But there does need to be a design, and then we do need to figure out, how we're gonna construct it, are we gonna do it? So those are discussions, but again, I think we're all on the same page, that we really wanna make this happen, and we wanna figure out how to do it in the best way possible. So now we'll talk about Pembroke very quickly, and then that pretty much, I think, you're gonna find is, those are the big highlights. And then maybe just the reductions to the middle high school would probably help as well. So, at Pembroke, again, we're gonna have 770 students. Because we have to keep some staff at Pearlie, we also have to look at, well, what would be needed at Pembroke? And so what we did is we said, well, we have one secretary, Diane Collins, who's at the Pembroke right now. But there will be a lot of needs. That school will be a busy place. There'll be parents coming in, it'll be a busy place. One secretary probably could not manage that.
But that's last year, we put the secretary from school year up to full-time.
We did, because the way we had worked it out with her is, that's right, she was school year, but then she worked in the summer for 2 weeks at her per diem rate. So when we were talking about it this past year, I said, you can't have that anymore, you gotta come back full-time, and she was ready to come back full-time. So we have Diane, who's, like you said, full year, so in the summer when supplies come in and parents
Yep.
come in, there's gotta be somebody there. But, you know, while we probably could use 2 full-time secretaries in the new plan, in order to work with the budget, we decided what we would do is we would say, well, at least if we had a second set of hands, on site during the school year, then in the summer, we wouldn't carry the secretary position through the summer for the second person. So it's a school year, position only, and we're funding it at a clerk typist, so it's more, a receptionist, doing some clerical, secretarial kind of things, but it's not a full secretary. That's a very different salary structure. In terms of the medical assistant, this is still in a discussion phase, but we have a 1.0 full-time nurse right now. Kathy Hatch is there. And one nurse is probably not enough, but what we did is we said, well, maybe what we'll do is we'll hire a medical assistant, which is somebody, you know, the child comes in, I got a headache. Okay, well, here's a ice pack to put on your head, you know, a triage kind of person. Because a lot of the things the nurse has to deal with are not things that are like of a serious condition, but the kids still need to be seen and, you know, and addressed. We also have a lot of, you know, paperwork that goes with heights and weights and body mass index and all the things the state requires us to keep. So we thought maybe if there was somebody who could do some clerical things that would relieve the nurse of having to do those things, then the nurse could be 100% nurse. The nurses are asking us if potentially, if we're wedded to that, perhaps if they could work with the $20,000 figure, if they wanted to hire a 3-day-a-week LPN, so that the nurse actually gets extra help from, you know, doing nursing work. As, you know, so we're still talking about that, if that's what they think is gonna meet their needs more and service the kids well, if, as long as it works within that budget, you know, we're not sure we're gonna make a big deal out of that.
Is this something that, this position, if it's, you know, assistant, something of the senior work-off program, someone who just happened to retire as a nurse and is just looking to
Well,
work
if they
some
have that
taxes?
medical background,
If they have the
sure,
medical
sure,
background,
sure.
you know.
Yeah, no, we'd entertain that, of course. And then, in terms of the custodians, I wanna just chat about that for a minute. So, based on the square footage of, the Pembroke School, going from 28,000 square feet to 98,000 square feet. Right now, if we look at level 3 cleanliness, not white glove, you're not gonna walk in and go, oh, not a speck of dust. It'll be clean though, right? You're gonna say, wow, this place looks good, it's clean. If we apply that formula to the number of custodians you would need to deal with the square footage we're talking about, we need 4. So, we have 2 currently at Pembroke. We have the night guy at Pearlie. And then when we were dealing with all the issues of the soil and the dust, in order to quell everybody's concerns about, you know, indoor air quality, we hired a .5, I keep calling him the dust guy, which is not fair, but his job is to make sure that they're going through and they're making sure that everything is, you know, that extra little bit of clean.
Okay, so
That-
what have you currently got? You have 2
We have
full-time
2 full-time
at Pembroke?
at Pembroke. We
Yep.
have a .5 coming from Pearlie, a night guy coming from Pearlie.
And it'll continue to be night?
Yes, yep,
And the 2 full-time Pembroke a day?
no, I think he's gonna have 1 during the day, and I think he wants the majority at night, because obviously the students aren't there, that you
Right,
can,
so you
you
just
can
really
move
do
through
the
the cleaning
cleaning,
process a lot
One day, one
more
night, okay.
quickly. Then, so now we're gonna, the third guy, the third person, could be a woman, third person is coming from the halftime Pearlie at night, and then the dust guy, the extra halftime custodian that was hired this year to help manage all of the cleanliness of the building. That's in the budget, so
And
that's
he-
the third.
And here, that's daytime?
It's gonna be night.
It's going to be night.
It's gonna be, he is night now, Sandy, he does
He's
come in,
night
yeah,
now.
yeah. Okay, so now we've got 3, so the gap is 1. Okay. So that actually is in the budget. That's a new position in the budget.
Which budget? 15 or 16?
This, what,
This budget.
You know,
Okay,
what
so
we have
you've
in
got-
front of us.
right.
So they're
So
all
if you've
4
got-
are in there, but 3 were already there.
Right.
And 1 is new.
New, yeah.
To bring it all up to 4 full-time.
That's right.
So currently what you've had in your FY15 budget is 2 full-time and 2 halves.
Yes.
So you've got 3 FTEs
And we
right
have
now.
1.5 at Pearlie, which we're only.
That's in the
That's,
total though.
that's
Oh,
right,
that's in
so
the
you,
total,
right now, you
yes.
have, right now, the expectation without anybody coming on in the new budget, you've got 3 FTEs planned for Pembroke.
If nobody new comes on, that's correct, yeah. And then the discussion we've been having the discussion about the maintenance. So of course, we're gonna have, when the fields come on, you know, through the building project, we're gonna have, 3 new baseball fields, 1 full-time soccer/lacrosse field, a flat third field that's not, because it's, the soil composition is not gonna allow it to be a traditional field, but it's still a space you could use, and a small soccer field.
And is Highway gonna be doing any of this? Maintenance?
Anyone-
Is Highway
helping-
plan, yeah,
Well, right now, Peter doesn't do any of our,
Okay.
fields.
okay.
So those fields though are not gonna come online until the summer of 16. So next year, we're looking at the full year of this budget.
Without taking care of the field.
There won't, well, Mike will say that, you know, he'll have to mow them, but they're not gonna be like fully functioning, you can't use them.
Right,
Nobody
right.
will, you have, what I'm
You have
being
to let
told
so
is you
much
have to
time.
have
Yeah,
2
yeah,
months,
that-
at least 2 growing seasons,
Yeah.
and they
Right.
like 3.
Okay,
So they're gonna plant them this spring,
right.
the ones that are part of the project, not the new fields that are, when the Pembroke comes down. Those fields are gonna be probably a season behind. But you're gonna, when that's all done, there's gonna be a lot of nice fields that the town has paid a lot of money to put in place there. So they do need to be maintained, and out of the goodness of the GAA, for years and years, they did a tremendous amount, and I'm not saying they won't continue to help, but that shouldn't be the expectation. We should be able to maintain those fields. And of course, there's grounds, right? There's a lot of grounds in, you know, around the new school. So originally, we weren't gonna touch it. We know we needed it, but we weren't gonna touch it in this budget, because we said, you know, next year we'll really get at it, right? Because we'll get that guy in there because he's gonna be full-time, we need it. But one of the things in the conversations with the school committee and administration that we're talking about is that we will have some very sophisticated HVAC systems in that school. The gray water system, I mean, there's a number of new things that really you need somebody who's got some understanding of maintenance. Just any custodian can't necessarily manage that. And even though there won't be fields, there still could potentially be, you know, a need for a maintenance person who's up to date on how to use those things, knows how to manage the sophisticated computer system, you know, can manage the grounds at least around the school.
But aren't those, isn't that equipment under warranty? For some time, it must be under warranty for a year, I think.
Yes,
As I
but you-
recall, right?
Right, but you still need somebody who's able to manage it and monitor it, and it's a big investment the town is making. So,
True.
you know, again, if it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly,
Right,
but
yeah.
we're making the case for why we came back and said, well, you know what? Because one of the things, the strategy was, well, let's come forward with the 2.46% and let's just make the case, and maybe if the FinCom has a magic money tree, they'll give us the, you know, the extra money, and, you know, all will be
Still
good with the
waiting for it to
world,
come in
right?
from Amazon.
All will be good with the world.
I
But-
you're
don't
saying-
see the HVAC guy mowing lawns though. That's the part you kinda lost me on.
Oh, no. Jim can tell you, we've been talking about shared maintenance for the whole town. And originally, that whole discussion was based on all the data they collected and looked at, you know, all kinds of things. What we needed was a maintenance person for Pembroke, but we also needed an HVAC person, which we didn't even come forward with because we just know.
Yeah, the
So
money's
it's
not
more
there.
a maintenance person though, Wayne, that can work with the
Right.
maintenance kind of area of the department. Eventually, that person will absolutely have to do the grounds. We have two district grounds people. We have 2 bodies that do the district grounds. So we anticipate that we're gonna need to, you know, have those people do some work at Pembroke as well.
Isn't there gonna be some availability with the turf field coming on for the work that was,
Well,
that has
that's
to be
what
done
we're
at the
thinking,
turf?
so that's right, so that's why we're thinking, you know, we'll be able to shift some priorities. There's still some work with the turf field that requires maintenance, but nothing like the
yeah,
lining and
like-
painting
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all of the things that we have to do now.
All right, so the HVAC, you said part-time, you're talking 20,000?
Well, we set a maintenance guy for Pembroke, 20,000, because it would be half-time,
Okay, and what would it be if it was full-time?
double that, it would be about $40,000.
For, you get an HVAC for 40,000?
Well, no,
No,
the
that would be
HVAC, what do we budget, Jim,
No, there was
65 or
60
something
for an
like
HVAC
that?
person. But the idea was to have it for the entire town.
Right.
That
Right.
would take care of the equipment in this building and in the
Right.
public safety
What
building.
what would a company charge to come in and take it under contract?
In terms of the actual
HVAC,
grounds?
100%.
You know, Wayne, we didn't deal with the HVAC because we didn't think we were gonna be
Yeah,
able to go
Mike
through.
did get a quote from somebody to come in and do the routine maintenance, like changing the filters and stuff like that.
Of the-
That was for the all school
School.
buildings.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that was,
too?
No,
Just
the
schools?
Yeah.
town buildings was $75,000.
yeah.
And that's routine maintenance, that's not, you know,
I
fixing
mean,
something if it
what we were
breaks.
hoping
This is a
for-
contract?
Well, at the time, when we did the ESCO,
Right.
Yeah.
that included parts and everything, because they knew everything was new and
Right.
it wasn't gonna break. And
Right,
and
yeah,
it was
for a
under,
while
and
anyway,
it was
yeah.
under warranty.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was, all in.
All in,
Okay.
yeah, that was all-
75,000, and for
Yeah.
the school, I wanna say it was a little south of 150.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, I'm just confused. So you've got
wanna confuse
two
you.
full-time at Pembroke, the
I'm
half,
talking currently now, Sandy.
currently, you've
Yeah.
got the two full-time at Pembroke.
Yep.
You've got the half coming over from Pearlie.
Yep.
And you've got the half that's currently there.
That's right,
So you've
that's
got
three.
3 FTEs.
Correct.
How many custodial maintenance are you asking for in this budget?
1.5. One custodian.
Because you have here 2 custodial maintenance
I
staff.
think that's a little, because I think that was originally what we wanted. We had to scale back a little bit, because we started to think, well, maybe we don't need full-time next year for the maintenance, because we
Okay,
don't
okay,
have
so
the
we
field.
just, so it's one
So it's
custodial
1.5,
maintenance.
and one
1.5.
custodian at halftime maintenance.
You know, our hope was that Mike and I
And
talked
for
about.
all for 41,000?
No.
No, 40 and 20, 60,
Plus 20.
Oh, it's 60.
yeah. Because your
That's what
your
I'm
full-time
trying to,
person
so
is
the
40.
so it's 1 full-time custodial you're asking and a 0.5 maintenance.
Right. And our hope, as we've been talking about this was, I always listen to the stories about, the town hall and poor Ruth is out there shoveling her sidewalks, our goal would be to try to figure out ways to sort of use our resources to help the town out in that way. That was always our goal, was to try to figure that out. But for this budget, we felt that it was prudent for us to say, could we work between a half-time and then the staff we have, right, at the district level, because as you said, Sandy, there is some shifting of some, we just don't know what the turf field's gonna take, cause we've never done it before, so we need to figure that all out.
Okay, hold on, Gary, do you have a question about this subject?
Is that half a position the difference in the school committee's budget and your budget?
That's correct.
Because-
That's exactly what it
You're
is.
showing it at 41,
Right.
you're saying that
That's
that
it.
half, so that half isn't in your budget, that's what's in school.
That,
committee.
yeah,
Yes,
that's right.
That's right, Gary,
right.
that's that's a great clarification, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Special education, I already talked to you about, so, again, our focus in this budget had always been, try to hit the 2.5% or less, right, in terms of an increase. So, we knew when we were adding positions, which I hope you understand the justification for why we added them, we also realized that would make our budget go up 4%, 5%, which wasn't something that we felt was responsible to bring forward. So what we did, and of course, we do have we already had some attrition movement from sixth grade down to elementary. So we took out of the middle high school budget, the salaries of 5 academic teachers, because we're gonna have 5 6th grade teachers. 1 special education teacher who had been servicing 6th grade. And then the choral program, in order to have a sequential band and chorus program between the 6th and 7th grade. We're going to give children in the 6th grade a choice. You can say, I wanna take band, or I wanna take chorus. When we do that, we have to offer it the same period. We can't have the band guy clone himself and be in 2 places at one time. So we worked out with the high school principal a very creative solution because the high school schedule rotates. So the same period doesn't happen every day. At the elementary, the same
Same
periods
period
happen
happens
every day.
Yeah.
So there is one block at the middle high school, G block, that does not rotate every day. So he is gonna free up this .2 position, the choral teacher, who will come to Pembroke in the time that the sixth grade has their special. So the band guy will take the band kids, and the chorus guy will take the chorus guy. So it's no more money, it's just a moving of the position. So we did that, and then further, at the middle high school, we made reductions. We looked at the schedules of the elementary specialists, figured out how many positions they could teach, figured out how many sections we had, and then figured out what we need for elementary specialists. So at the middle school, .6 art teacher is being eliminated.
Are these layoffs?
That one would be. That one would be.
Have we accounted for the unemployment yet?
You know, Sandy, I don't believe we have. Again, we're looking at the bottom, our job right now was to look at the bottom line, but I understand what you're saying. There's other impacts on top of that. The .4 physical education teacher, is a less senior teacher, so that's her salary.
Is that a layoff or?
Her position is being reduced from .8 to .4, so no, I don't believe that is a layoff. She may leave because she can't afford to
Right,
do
but
a
it's not a-
.4,
it's
but
not a
it's not a layoff. The .2 FTE music teacher, same thing, he's going from a .8 to a .6. The math teacher, that was, there were too many sections in the seventh grade, so they had to take a part-time math teacher from the high school and have them teach. So we don't need that next year because of the way the numbers are gonna work, so that, again, isn't a layoff, it's just a reduction in a math teacher's time. And then, theater arts, the same thing, they're gonna continue to teach theater arts, but there was a .4 in the budget, and so it's a redirection more than anything else, but it is an actual .4 funding. It is a reduction in the funding in our school budget of $23,000.
But it's not a layoff, there's
But
only
it's
one
not
layoff?
a layoff, there's only one that I know of. And then, of course, sorry, Mike, did you have it?
Yeah. All in, what's the difference in FTEs?
I think we need to get you that information, Mike.
I'd have to compare my last year's staffing to this year's.
Yeah, we can get you that information, definitely, into the committee.
Excuse me, Gary, you have a question too
yeah.
on this one?
Well, while you're on layoffs,
Yeah.
also, yes, I wrote a note under that, back up a little bit, the clerk typist, that
Yep.
you're talking school year.
Yes.
So could that possibly be unemployment time that the town would have to put up?
No, because we'll give her a letter, that says that she's coming back in September.
Right, we'll give her a
We have,
reasonable
we have a lot of
assurance letter.
positions that are like that, as
Well, I
long as you.
understand with the teachers, they could sometimes do that, but clerks and typists.
No, because she's being hired as a school year secretary, so she'll be given a letter of assurance June 30th that says she has a job, and that will prevent her from collecting unemployment.
Thank you.
Right, she would know right up front that was the arrangement. And then, I have a friend who always had the expression, how do you eat the elephant one bite at a time? So then we went back and we looked at the budget, because we weren't at the number, and we said, what else can we do? So we are not, legal services, there's special ed legal services, and then there's the school committee legal services. So what we did is we said, we're gonna reduce that amount by, the amount that's in the budget by $7,500. Because we don't anticipate that, we're not negotiating like with the teachers where we might utilize the services of the legal counsel a little bit more for negotiation purposes. That's gonna be concluded hopefully this June, hopefully, that's our plan. So we said, let's reduce that, no impact to children, we're trying to get it no impact to children, because we do think in many ways, we haven't impacted significantly because it's really been redirecting, but there will be some slight increases in class size at the high school in some classes, particularly specialist classes, and we will need to consolidate some sections to deliver services, but not every child will get what they've been able to necessarily get in the, as they do now. We talked about maintenance contracted services for the reasons we explained to you. Elementary specialists, there are 2.1 positions. Again, that's just driven by the amount of time we need specials. So we could have kept those in the budget, but we said, no, everything at this point is precious. So we're reducing that. We are reducing 3 paraprofessionals in special education. We, again, looked very closely at caseloads. There will be an impact, but every child who has an educational plan that calls for services for a paraprofessional will receive them. The special ed director and the principals are working on the logistics of that. It's likely to be 1 at the middle high school and 2 at the elementary. But that's a reduction. In terms of
Those
layoffs, I think you're gonna ask me about the layoff question, aren't you? My guess is that a couple of those would be layoffs, because I think we are sort of holding off on hiring someone that we thought we were gonna need, so I would just count that as a reduction, right? So that's not a body that exists right now. But that is probably, I would say there's probably 2 positions there, Wayne. And then, of course, we have cafeteria assistants, and, we're merging the 2 schools, so we're thinking we can do that more efficiently. We're talking about some hours here and there for maybe a couple of people. We also have long-term substitutes. This one is a risk, because we have had a lot of young people who've been having children, and so we have to account for that in terms of our substitute lines. And, if somebody's parent gets ill or they take time off, or they get ill. So we're thinking that we're gonna take the risk, and we're gonna save $5,000 out of that account. See, we're eating the elephant little bites now. And then substitutes at the middle high school, they have an ability to have this interesting coverage of individual periods. So we find they don't take full day subs. So we figure we can, this is a place where we can look at that. And that gets us to the number. Of course, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. In the different pages that are behind, we try to put that in there for backup. So you see our revolving accounts, you see our grants, you see our school choice data in terms of kids who come in, where they go, where they come from. It's probably more data than you care to have, but sometimes people like to sort of know what's behind the number. And so we're happy to answer any questions of any lines or any major topics that you'd like to hear more about.
Questions from the board?
I think before I go hire an HVAC guy, I'd get a hold of some companies and rattle some cages and get some numbers.
Okay, we can certainly look at that.
Because,
So this is gonna be, maintaining the
wouldn't-
grounds
we just-
necessarily, but,
We used to, I know I was involved with the ESCO people,
Yep.
dealing with Mike and stuff. There are companies out there that you can be very satisfied, and, you're talking putting a person in there for 60,000. I doubt you're gonna get a decent HVAC guy for 60,000,
Right.
plus benefits.
well, that's why we
Yeah, we're
didn't
not-
put
we're
it,
not
that's why
talking-
we
this
didn't put it
budget
in the
doesn't
budget,
have an
Wayne. We didn't
HVAC
put it,
guy.
that was,
I would seriously look at, cause.
yeah, we can definitely
This
look
is
at
just a
that
maintenance guy.
long-term going
Yeah.
forward,
The other
absolutely.
thing I think you're gonna be a little short on is, you're pushing the maintenance and the mowing and the traffic and all that stuff. I know what you're talking about next year, it's not gonna be growing and it's not gonna be.
I know.
But when you get to 17, you're gonna suddenly go, oh my
Yeah.
God, who's gonna cut this lawn?
So I think that's why we're hoping that, like with the shift from as much energy that needs to, happen with the sort of individual fields, that maybe the turf field will require less. But you're right, I mean, but here's the deal, we're trying to hit the number,
I know.
right? So we're trying to figure out, like, how do we get there in the way that, and then, you know what, Wayne, if that happens, then we'll have to find the money somewhere if it's important, we just have to do it. It means we probably won't do something else, but,
Any other questions?
No. I think we ought to talk about how much money is available right now,
I-
rather than,
I know, I understand that.
um,
Yeah. right now, Jim's gonna pull it up, and right now, my.
Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah,
Oh.
I did. On the special ed side,
Yes.
are there any, I don't know if you would know this or not, are there any future, I guess, kids coming in that you know of? Cause I think, one of my concerns about special ed is, seems like, as a society, we're seeing more and more kids with autism and
Yep,
things of
that's
that
true.
nature. My concern is moving forward. I mean, we have to support these kids, up to 22
22.
years old. So never mind fields. I mean, we might have a real shortage in the special ed, area. So, do we have any expectations based on maybe other districts or whatever in terms of what's going on?
Well, what we do is Director of Special Education actually sits and, I meet with her monthly and then go over, is there anybody that she sees on the radar screen? Because unless somebody moves into town, most of these kids might be in our district, right? So we can sort of do some predicting. She predicts how many students are gonna graduate within the next year, 2, 3 years. So we, like for a couple of years ago, we had a residential placement that cost $300,000. So we knew that 2 years from then, we were gonna have to not worry about that $300,000 anymore. So she does projections for the kids that are in-house. What we can't always control is people who move in, right? Or situations where you might have, students whose needs just get greater as the pressure for academics and those kind of things increases. So yes, we're aware, Joe, of that every year, but sometimes,
That's the number.
sometimes, I call those the kids on the
I
bubble.
see, because you balanced
Right.
it here.
We don't
that's
include
not
them in our
balanced,
budget
yeah,
necessarily because I told you why, otherwise we cut something else,
Last year's,
right? That's why we use the circuit
Yeah,
breaker
yeah.
and we freeze our budget. So, we control it as best we can, but that's why I said it's like snow and ice, right? You could have a year where, you've
plug it in,
budgeted and
then
you could have
that's,
3 new kids come in and then,
But it's last
there isn't an account necessarily. That's why I was hoping to do something like satisfy some programming needs, right? And then put that money, in a way that could go back and help pay for that.
Right. Cool. I think you guys do a good job, trying to figure this out.
Thank you.
And that's-
It is
that's-
complicated.
that's a tough
It
area.
is complicated sometimes. But thank you, Joe. Appreciate that.
That's the number I did, the 1932, 226, okay.
So what is the bottom line?
Write that down,
Do you guys have anything you wanna add?
No, for the difference. What's the
240.
No, you good? You good?
243. With 243.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know it well. I know it well, right?
That's with 3,
New positions in, in insurance. Okay.
Oh, I did have one other question,
Okay.
actually.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was writing them down as I was
yeah, but we
ignoring
have
everybody in introductions.
Oh, at least you're doing something.
The red, I know, right?
I'll check, but I'm pretty sure we do.
You had mentioned that adding another
What is it, 15? No. I
another
need the-
classroom,
The other number.
okay, would generate additional revenue. Is that in here somewhere? I was kind
For
of
the
looking for.
preschool?
Well, it would be in the revolving account section, so,
But the
So where is that?
preschool, we didn't update
sorry.
this in the budget.
I'm sorry, say that again, Joe?
In the preschool, we didn't add the class yet. The school
No,
committee
no.
hasn't,
The school committee
approved
hasn't
it.
approved it. We're gonna talk about that on Thursday.
All right, so what, can you talk
It wouldn't
about
hit the
maybe the
budget.
anticipated
Detail.
revenue that might bring in,
Okay.
or?
So we figure that it would cost us, well, it costs us the cost of a teacher and the cost of an aide. That's generally how we staff the preschools. It also depends on how many kids
Here we
are enrolled,
Okay.
right? So obviously, 20 kids generates more revenue than 15 kids,
Oh, that's
right?
252.
Well, you had mentioned there's a lot of interest, right? Is the
Well,
expectation
we had the
it'll be
lottery
a full-
the other day.
Yeah.
It would be our expectation that we would
But we could
fill
just
it.
tell her.
If,
Okay.
I have to
if
fix it.
we projected out 12 slots in a full day class, because we have to maintain slots for the special ed
You don't break
integrated
this
students,
down.
that's why we're there.
They don't pay to come.
They don't pay, so
Okay.
that's why we have the program, is to be able to integrate the special ed. That would generate around $94,000 if we had 12
Some services.
full day slots.
Less the
Less
cost,
than-
less the
and
cost
then
of,
subtract from that a teacher and an aide, so a teacher would be like 56, and then an aide 17. So you're talking about increased revenue of around 21,000.
Okay.
And there's room, I think, in there for more kids, and sometimes you get kids that will come 2 days a week or 3 days a week,
Yeah.
so you just
They don't
have
all come 5
a little
days.
less revenue, but I think you're safe with projecting out 12.
12.
I met with Margaret today,
Yeah.
that's what we talked
Yeah,
about.
and then we have, because our rooms are well outfitted and there's new furniture coming into the new school, right? So there's actual furniture and supplies and water tables and all those kind of things that would be appropriate for both the faculty daycare and the new preschool. So there wouldn't be additional costs that we would need to incur to outfit it, you know, in furniture and equipment. That was another driver in what kind of things would we add that weren't gonna be more cost than just the bare minimum of what we would need to add.
On the faculty daycare,
Yes.
what are your estimates for participation?
Well, I did a needs assessment, an online needs assessment, and it was really very interesting because, you know, I asked 5 questions, one of which is, you know, how much would you be willing to pay? You know, what's kind of like your
Oh, yeah, you
maximum,
gotta know
right?
that.
Start.
Yeah, what's your maximum? So it was very interesting, you know, we had a few that were $400, you know, a month, and then there was one that said $3,000 a month, so, but, you know, it's sort of
Apparently that was
interesting.
really
What does she do?
convenient.
Yeah, we did a sort of a assessment of looking at, you know, actually Michael was very helpful on this, cause he is a preschooler and, does daycare, so, we actually looked at a number of places that do daycare and do preschool, and, you know, it falls roughly in the sort of between $6.50 an hour and $7 an hour. So that's what we're kind of working with. We're also going to extend, because believe it or not, when we did the signups yesterday, we decided there was interest in before and after school care. So students come from 7 to 9 in the morning, and then we were going to do it from 3 to 4:30. But you would be amazed at the people that signed up that said 6 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
For
So
preschool- for preschool.
currently, our before and after school programs go to 6, but they don't, and the preschool can participate in that. But we sort of thought 4:30 would kind of, it's a long day for preschoolers, but then we remember parents are working. If you work till 5, you know, you can't get your kid at 4:30. So we said, well, we'll operate the program based on your needs. So if we ended up, you know, with all those people who said they had a need till 6 o'clock, well, you know, we'll staff that because they're gonna pay for it. So it's
Our
roughly,
teachers don't stay till 6 o'clock.
well,
what I'm saying.
no, I'm talking more about the preschool programs have them before and after school. But some teachers might, if they coach or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
true.
so it looks, at Pembroke, we're gonna continue to run before and after school programs. But we weren't sure about the preschool. We were thinking, well, gee, you know, people will come pick their kids up but that's not the case. I mean, the world has changed for a lot of working parents. And so, and we're gonna run camps, sort of daycare on, February vacation and April vacation. We're not doing it at Christmas. But, you know, most parents that work don't have necessarily the availability to be off all week on February and all week on April. So again, our goal is to try to generate revenue, but it's also to meet the needs of the community and the people who, you know, who really need the services. And if they need it till 6, and they're willing to pay the fee till 6, then we'll staff it till 6.
Can you run a summertime program too?
Well, we haven't gone that far. We do run summer programs. We haven't run one for preschool, other than, the special ed director runs, special education programs, and then, other students, typical students, would have the opportunity to come and have an integrated program. But we run 2 kinds of camps at Pembroke. We run an adventure camp, which parents pay for. We run that, we're into the science, math, and technology STEM stuff. So we're actually running a STEM camp for 2 weeks. And then followed by that, we run a 6-week, you know, summer program where people can come for a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. It runs from like 9 to 2, and you know, they do CSI, you know, they do all these really cool little themes. But we do that to help the parents, you know, out in the summer as well. But it's not 100% all year summer program like you might need for daycare. But it's an option for parents, and it's always booked every year. They do a once a week field trip, and they allow parents to just have the kids go on the field trip. You don't have to come the whole week, you can just pay for the field trip. That's been a very, very important option. And then we found that a lot of parents after school didn't necessarily need the care till 6, so we instituted a convenience hour. So if you're somebody who has to work till 3:30 or 4, and you just want your child to come for the convenience hour, you can do that as well. So I think we're really trying to, you know, but all of these things that we're talking about are all operated not in the budget. I think that's important. If we were to put those things in the budget, we would never be able to afford it. But in order for us to continue to put things in revolving accounts and not hit the budget, we have to generate the revenue. So we're trying to do it based on what's gonna meet the needs of the community. In a nutshell, I guess that's how I would explain that.
Any other questions right now? First, let me say thank you once again.
You're very
Your
welcome.
budget books are fabulous. They're full of lots of information and educational, and they're very helpful to us. One of the challenges that, Mike was running numbers and stuff, that we're running into right now is with the numbers that we're gonna start looking at the budget overall, is that we're not gonna use the governor's cherry sheet. I think that's a very risky thing to do at this point in time. Using we think we're probably gonna look at using the cherry sheet from last year, what we had in level funding, is that correct, Mike? The level funding, the cherry sheet from last year?
For state
For-
revenue,
For
yes.
state revenue.
I was able to, at least for now, increase local receipts by $140,000.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so now with your budget plugged in and other budgets plugged in with, that the other folks have given us, we are at a deficit of 243,000. So, that's gonna be.
where we are.
We have not had a deficit of 243,000 in a number of years. Hello?
Oh, cute. I'm sure he's not coming to listen to the school budget.
No, hi, welcome. How you doing?
Future finance committee member, right.
You got 243,000?
So,
In his piggy bank.
Yeah.
while
Right
it's
up
a
there,
challenge, luckily, we have, there are three of us who have actually been on budgets that were really, when we had budgets this big of a deficit.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a very daunting task. I don't even know what else to say besides daunting. Jim, what do you have anything to add?
You know, I think, I assume that we'll get some of what the governor is saying we'll get right now. I just don't know how much. And by the way, one of the budgets has the school resource officer. in
I
it,
know
so-
that, I talked
so,
to the chief about that. That's kind of,
but to be
unfortunately, they're tying our
perfectly-
hands on that, you know?
To be perfectly honest, there's no way in the world that you're gonna get all of the money that you have put in your budget. I really don't know exactly how much now, but there's just no way in the world you're gonna get that. That money isn't available. We don't have any place to get it. You know, someplace that's a recurring source of revenue.
And Jim and
so-
I remember very clearly the year of 2002, when in October, November, the state came back and said, yeah, we're not coming through with all that money, and then we had to
Then
make cuts.
they took money from
They
that
took
particular
money-
year, yeah.
They took money
yeah,
from
they
that
did,
year.
yeah.
So with
Trying to
many
avoid that.
budgets asking for new employees to be added, not saying that nobody needs them. I think
Oh,
everybody needs them. I think it's gonna be very difficult to put a new employee on with the potential of laying them off.
Oh.
Because right now we've got, who's coming in first, Mike, the Senate or the House? Who's coming at the end of
Senate comes.
Senate's coming in April, right? End of April?
I think the House usually comes first.
The House usually
because-
does come first,
Yeah,
that's true.
because the
And then they
governor's
do the
budget is House Bill 1.
House Bill 1, right.
Right. I
And
just
they-
couldn't remember
they-
which one.
They act on that.
I mean, we're hoping, because I think there's a lot of lobbying around the state, that at least come up with, in the past, they haven't had their final number, but they've had a working number that they felt
Yeah.
they could,
If
you
they
know.
could give us
They could
that.
give us, and
You're right.
unfortunately,
You're right.
what we're understanding is, you know, Baker's budget was sort of a month late, only because he came into
Yeah.
office and he had a
Yeah.
lot to deal with. Normally, you know, we'd be closer to getting the number, so I
Everything
think
else
if
is getting
anybody
pushed
does
off.
anything, they should lobby, you know, their legislators to just come up as close as they can with a number that's realistic, not the pie in the sky, but the realistic number. Because as we heard from the legislative breakfast, from a number of selectmen and finance people from neighboring towns, they're in the same boat, right? They have town meetings coming up and they don't know what number to work with. So,
And that's one of the things is that House is gonna come in and then the Senate, so everything's pushed off. So
Yeah.
we're not even, I think it's gonna be challenging for us to even get a good working number
Yeah.
by town meeting, never mind by the FinCom book.
yeah, yeah.
By
Yeah.
town meeting, so so I think when we start going into our deliberations, we're really going to need to look at, we gotta come in with a balanced budget. And free cash is gone for snow.
Well, you can't use it for your budget anyway,
Right.
not in any,
Right.
serious amount of money, so.
Right, so it's definitely,
Yeah, I mean, it's like we have to look at, well, what can we reduce the cost of? I mean, health insurance is killing everybody, but I would
That's-
urge you to go back and push that number hard. I can just remember when I was a school superintendent in a regional, which obviously you're not dealing with here. But, I remember, we dealt with Maya, and I remember years where they were predicting 7, 8, 10%, and we said, sorry. And all the local superintendents all said, we're gonna just go looking. We're gonna go look, we're gonna see what's out there, and guess what? It was a 2% increase. So sometimes you can put, I don't know if that's the case with Maya, I'm sure Mike's, pounding the pavement and, getting them down where he can. But that's an avenue that if you could get some relief on that, that would help you with play in your budget, for sure.
Well, I was talking with the Maya rep at
Yeah.
the breakfast, and just for quick, our health insurance last year went down 2.8%.
Was that because you did the plan design?
Plan design change. I was anticipating a 5% increase. I thought I was gonna have a conversation with him this week. He was kind of prepping me for an 8% increase.
So we'll look elsewhere.
Well, no,
mean,
here's
it's a
the
competitive
problem,
market,
Carol.
right?
Yeah.
No, it's not, because GIC is
Yeah.
going up double digits.
I know that. That was a crazy, when there was prediction that was gonna be the savior to all school budgets, I said, no way,
No.
absolutely not.
What
And
happened there?
Got bigger than they could afford.
And Maya was happy because
what's,
all the big towns that left Maya were the ones that had the worst claims history.
Right.
So it was a negative selection process for GIC. They got all the
Worst kids, worst people. Yeah.
case scenario, so it actually helped Maya for them to leave.
Mm.
Plus, GIC got hammered with administrative costs
Yeah.
for additional costs, so
They got bigger than they could afford to
Yeah.
be.
So I don't see any relief in the health insurance. And right now, I've counted 3 new employees at a cost of $60,000.
Yeah.
In that number, in that 8%.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's not easy.
Well,
I
if we
mean,
can't have, any new employees, let's say, then.
That's a
then
$60,000.
there
save
is-
$60,000.
Yeah, that's
Right.
$60,000. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff we have to look
Oh.
at,
and it's, and like I said, it may be just none of that happens at this town meeting per se, and then we revisit it again in the fall, if things, the state finds their money tree and they've got, things to come up, but.
Probably not.
well, the problem, as you know, I think your question to me makes a lot of sense what is the layoff picture? Because if if you say to us, okay, Carol, you guys need to go back and come in at 1.5%. What that means is that's $130,000 cut, plus the 56 of the reduction in that grant that funds our aides. That's gonna result in layoffs.
Right,
And that's
right.
gonna increase a problem for the town on the other side. It's just, I mean, it's all a balancing
And
act,
that's-
isn't
and
it? We totally understand the place you are, because we're in that same, I mean, it was tough for me to get to 2.46.
Right, and I guess that's one of the things that we really need to look at after town meetings, we need to go back, cause that is not a right number, 2.5 is not a right number, that is what we're allowed to put up taxes.
I know.
And what has happened over the years is that basically the biggest allowable amount has been 1 to 1.5%, because we have fixed costs, we have retirement, we have, the fixed costs keep going up. So with not having any overrides and not having any business tax,
I know.
you know, billable, we're in a very, very difficult situation in Georgetown.
But I think that's probably part of what you're trying to say is, well, what's the long-term strategy in Georgetown? Because it can't, you know, I mean, your departments can't go under. You can't close town hall more days. Services, you know, I mean, I'm not sure that you have a luxury of a lot of services right now. You have great
Right.
people doing work. But it sort of reminds me of where we were right before the override. So the question is, like, how do we help ourselves? What's the answer, right? Is it, you know?
There's no way anyone's gonna have an appetite for the next few years. of
Totally
anything.
understand.
Oh, yeah,
I-
for an
I tot-
override, yeah, there's no way.
But then
that-
what's the revenue generation strategy that can happen? I know Jim's been working on economic development forever,
But
you know?
you look at even a town like Rowley,
Mm-hmm.
they, with all of the businesses that they have on Route 1, they're about 4% more than we are in terms of businesses. You know, I don't, and in
Yeah.
fact, their single family tax bill, average single family tax bill is higher than ours.
I know, I heard that, yeah. That's what that gentleman said that day.
So, it's, yeah, I mean, it's just, it's,
Yeah,
this
I don't
is
know.
where we are. And even the towns that seem to have a lot of money and have been getting, you know, overrides or more debt or whatever, residents have had it. They're not, everyone's pushing back. We're lucky we've got a very, very good town. We've got committed employees. A lot of our employees live in town too, so it impacts them. So I think we have that. That being said, that's on our side in a lot
Absolutely.
of ways, because everyone's committed to make the best of it, given the situation. But the bottom line is that we're starting with $243,000 deficit that we have to start finding where we're,
Yeah.
where we.
What we gotta
it's-
do to-
And it's not cutting people's budgets, it's basically reducing people's requests. That's what it is people's budgets, a cut into a budget is taking this current year's budget and reducing it even further for next year. So it's not a cut to anybody's budget we're looking at, it's really gonna be reducing people's requests, what they have. So I wanna make that clear, because it's just, unless somebody gets less money than they got this year, they're not getting a cut. So. Any comments from the board, or? Sorry to be
So
the
are
bearer
you
of bad
gonna-
news, I'll be the bearer of
Are
bad
you
news.
gonna chat about what you're gonna do now? Are you
I
gonna do
don't,
that
I'm
on
not
another
sure,
night?
Michael,
Getting
Michael's a
late, yeah,
question, I
we
apologize.
had planned on that, yeah.
Oh, it's
Just
fun
like-
this time.
One of the numbers that sort of struck me as making things harder, the step and scale of 200,000 is the 1.5%.
That's right.
You know, so that's, if we're saying
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at the future 1.5%.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what to tell
and
you.
that's without increases, I mean, that's a meaningful cut in
Yeah,
services.
yeah.
And I know exactly.
You've
what
been
you're
up
saying.
here, right? You
You've
know.
been there, you kinda know, yeah.
But I mean, that's one of the challenges, is
And that is
we
definitely,
spend that before even opening the budget.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't have a choice.
I think we've been lucky for the past couple of years because Mike has been able to reduce our insurance costs. And if our insurance costs weren't going up
And you got a
as
little
much as
help
they
from the
are, we
state.
have more money.
And if you got a little help from the state, that, that will
Yeah.
help as well.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that we're gonna get money from
I
the
do.
state. It seems to me that Baker is kinda committed to that.
Well, you're
How
gonna
much
get-
he's able to do,
Well,
I
that's
don't
just-
Well, you're gonna
know.
get $20 a student more.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's $30,000.
Yeah, that's
you
not a
know.
lot of money, that's, yeah,
But
big
if
whoop,
you're,
but it's,
but
yeah,
you're
it's
eating the
something.
elephant one bite at a time,
Yeah, that's right, it's one, yeah.
That's right, that's a bite.
Well, the Baker's cherry sheet, the HB1, is, I think that's going to be our best case scenario.
Oh, I would think
Oh,
so, I don't,
absolutely.
oh, yeah.
And that increases our revenues by $97,000.
Yeah.
On
And
top
that
of,
is not-
in addition
And
to the
it cuts,
140,
there's some
Mike?
cuts and costs
There's
too.
the-
No,
well,
oh,
no, I think there's
oh.
gonna be some increase
That's
in
already
cost.
counted in the
Well,
budget.
that's gonna be lost in revenue.
Oh.
So the local receipts you said was 140K.
Yes.
So are you saying the chapter 70 increase? I'm just trying to
70
follow what you
well-
just said, because I think that's gonna go up too. I think that's what Jim's saying, but how much?
No, that's what I'm talking about, state
That's,
revenue.
I got the number from him, that's,
Including the chapter 70?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Including the,
97,000 all in.
Well, I think
Yeah.
she's asking is the local receipts is outside that. You said
That's
that
right.
you
Yes,
said
local
receipts
receipts
was
is in addition to
440.
that
Yeah, I've
97,000.
already calculated that.
That's in
That's
there
in
already.
that
In the
deficit.
243.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's all in
So
there.
you're talking the best case scenario is $97,000 off the 243.
Yeah, that's
That would be the
right.
deficit.
Basically,
And-
it's about
Well, that's
that,
better.
yeah.
And
Going in the
remember,
right direction.
the
Well,
lottery, the chances of lottery staying the same
That's the other thing.
is slim and none. That's probably going down. I mean, Mike has already, we were told that on
Really?
Friday. So therefore, that 96,000 is
Going down.
going down.
Well, actually though, there was a decrease in costs, which might be offset by the lottery numbers, you
It
know.
was a 14,000.
Right, yeah, so it wasn't a
decrease in
huge amount of money.
Which was also good because they usually increase your revenue, but then
They
increase
costs
charges.
as well,
So
yeah.
you don't win.
Yeah.
Gary, you had a question or comment?
And gives, the other takes away.
Val was saying, you wonder how we all do it, but I have to say, it may not be well-liked, but one of the things that we've done as selectmen is we've really worked hard at negotiations, because you gotta realize that the bulk of what we're dealing with is salary here. And that's where we have been able to really make some headway going forward, is some negotiations that lives within the increases that the town can adjust.
Yeah.
Going forward, that's how we can maintain staff that we have, and perhaps even put on more, because the salary negotiations are within the reasonable limits of what we have to work with.
Yeah.
And that's the best place I can see that you've gotta go.
Well, I know
I know
in
it's not easy.
I know in talking to Stu and talking about what the town, committed over 3 years at 5.5%. Well, that's what the teachers got in the last contract, over 3 years, 5.5%. And that included their step. That money was figured in. I did a little research, because I like to try to benchmark, right? So I asked the people in the North Shore superintendents, can you send along, what either your current contract is with your teachers for 3 years, or, what you're just getting forward. And, it's interesting because 2%, 2.1, sometimes they'll split it, like one in July and one in
Right,
January.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting, one is getting a 3, but nobody's getting higher than 1.5 to 2.5, and that's what we've been, we're still negotiating, but that's what we've been working with.
That's
So
what it is.
and the other thing, in the last teacher's contract, we worked it out, so they have a buyback for sick time that's been in the contract for a long time. We got them to agree, now, of course, it doesn't hit for a number of years, but it's still a significant, step, that anybody hired after 2012 got no sick leave buyback. The complete benefit goes away. So again, we gotta live through, that's obviously what you get if you retire. So, we're gonna, maybe not all of our teachers are gonna retire from Georgetown. But the idea that, I think we're doing our due diligence to work with the town, because that is what we always talk about, an unfunded liability, right? And they agreed to take that out of the contract for people after 2012. So, I think
Yeah,
that,
that's a good thing.
and the selectmen have a seat at the table, with our negotiations. That's statutorily, how it works. So, yes, we hear you, Gary. A huge number of a huge percentage of our budget is salaries.
And
There's
that's,
no
and like I
doubt.
said, that's what,
And that's the case for every department.
for every department and for every town, and that's why with this town, I think that, everybody works so closely together that is a benefit to us, because everybody does understand, and, there is only so many dollars. And that's Georgetown, unfortunately, that's the fact.
But the problem is, just like we're talking about with our revolving accounts, right?
Yep.
So we know how close they are now, but we know that next year, the slightest little thing tips them to a place where so I think that the worry for the town and the worry for the schools and any other department is, when you get that close, unless there's something that happens, it just goes in the wrong direction, right? And then hopefully, you have people in town who say, this is the level of service we're gonna want or demand, and we figure out ways to.
And then you've got
To
the other
change
people
the-
saying,
Oh, yeah,
I'm fine with it.
I know,
I don't want
I
any more
know.
of my money going out of my pocket.
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
And that's why I think over the years, by the negotiations and with the salaries and everything being as tight as they are, people have been able to keep their jobs. which is, which is good, and, especially through the lean times and the economy busting and everything like that.
But
Yeah,
we
they're
all
not-
know level funding's a cut, right? We know that. Level funding is a cut.
If you have salary.
And I just can say, when I was in Georgetown at the beginning of my time here, I mean, every single year it was level fund, level fund, level fund. And we'd make $300,000 worth of reductions, but you saw what happened when the stimulus money came, because we had, just like other departments, we were cutting. And then we got to the point where we weren't at foundation, right? So then we get this infusion of $1 million, which we all knew wasn't a gift, and sure enough, look what happened.
Yep.
Right, when that money came away. So it's just, that's why I'm always trying to work with the school committee, and how can I help myself before I have to get into a situation where now I can't afford it. But what is happening is, those revolving accounts become unhealthy, because you're putting recurring expenses
Yeah, that's
on,
not a
on
good thing, you're right.
sources of funding which aren't designed to be recurring.
Right.
Right, and our challenge is that
Yeah, I
you
know.
as the schools have to look at that portion. We have to look at the whole
I
town.
totally get it, we
We have to
do.
look at the entire town, and
But I'm
so-
just saying,
yeah.
the town really needs to look at it, Sandy, because,
Yep.
we don't wanna be in a situation again like we were 4 years ago, where every department was suffering and struggling, not just the schools.
Yep,
Right.
and hopefully something will break, but
Yeah,
in this point,
hopefully, yeah.
we're dealing with, walking into this with a $243,000 deficit that we have to find. So, it's unfortunate, but I think also this board, one of the things when we look at it, we wanna treat everyone fairly and equitably. We don't wanna, make anyone feel that, they get the short end of the stick over somebody else.
Absolutely.
But, there's a lot of needs that have to be met in this town with limited resources. So, anybody have any cheery comments?
Sure you don't
See
have
how
that
I've been-
magic money tree? Somebody needs
See
to
how I've
plant
been
one.
Debbie Downer the whole night?
Somebody needs to plant one. All right, well, thank you very much for your attention, and if you do have any questions, we're obviously very happy to, speak with you further about
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think, who's gonna be able to
He's-
send out the recent
Here, if,
to everybody so we can sit and
would you
look?
give me the personal service, purchase of service numbers that you have, so I can get up to the number of their request, and then we can start working off of that? You got that?
I don't have that, I just took that lump sum number.
Okay. Well, why don't I do that then, and then we'll go back. I hate doing that, but I'd rather do, this part.
That's fine. It should be in here though, right? You can just find it in here and make it work? Get that number?
I'll try.
Okay, and then can you send that out to everybody so that way we can,
Yes.
that way we can see where we are? and
I'll
people
send it
can
out
start
tomorrow morning.
Looking at different areas within the budget and,
I have it, Jim, but not in here.
Yeah. I would just like to keep it on here,
Yeah.
the most updated. All right.
so.
Okay,
that-
I'll get it out of
Okay.
here then.
That way we.
We need to make a copy of that drive, though. That,
I would.
that's dangerous.
that's got all my other stuff.
I know, that's what I was thinking that. That's what I'd like to do, is put this on another,
Yeah.
put the budget on another drive,
Yeah.
so that you have all of this stuff back. It has all the social security numbers and stuff on it, doesn't it?
No.
No, I don't even get those.
No, I was only
Yeah.
kidding. It's
He
got
drops it in the
it's got a lot
puddle,
of
we're in
stuff on
deep
it, though.
trouble.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got it right now on your laptop, right?
Yes.
Okay, you've got it
And I have
there.
there is a copy on the
Okay,
Yeah.
town's shared drive.
okay.
Oh, well, one thing I did is I put Park and Rec in here. Because, what's his name, Richard just sent it last night.
Yeah.
So this has Park and Rec in it.
Well, I had,
Did you-
I just added 1.5% to
Oh,
the
I know,
budget.
but
Yeah.
it's $236 less.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so,
Okay, so that makes it down to,
so I don't have to throw it, I don't
You
have
don't
to
have
throw
to
in
throw
the
in the
$16. I don't have to throw in
$16.
16. All right, so wait a minute, so Jim, what you need to have is this it right here, that the 11,792?
No. Oh, it's 13,932, 226, right?
Yeah.
That's the total.
All right,
so
why didn't I
these-
put that in there? How do we break that down?
Well, that I don't have. That's the
The
part.
11,792.
I don't have on this.
Oh, is that what that is?
Hold on, let me
11,792.
double
All right,
check
let's
it.
try that.
Let me,
people aren't really watching this.
Well, we can always, let me see, 11,792, what else? 503. And,
No,
Right.
you just gave them $117,000. No, 117 million.
oh, that's kind, oh, really?
Jim is
That's kind of a
very
lot.
generous tonight.
There's the tree.
So that,
Can we break for
Magic
about?
money.
We stand up, Judith?
Sure.
yeah,
Five
All right.
minutes. Yeah.
yeah. We're gonna break for 5 minutes. Well, we don't,
503.
we're still gonna stay live, but that's fine
Yeah.
while we do this stuff.
Okay, there we go. Now, I gotta go down to this one. Is this purchase of services?
Yes,
This?
it's this plus this.
Okay, all right. Equals
One.
1273719 plus
866004.
866004. 13,392,226.
13,932, 226.
Yeah,
It's dinging.
932.
Okay,
That's not what I
alright.
said. That 932,
Okay.
226.
Okay,
So we're good.
Save,
Jim,
save.
do you have, the assessments in there too?
Yeah, Whittier.
Whittier.
I don't know. I don't have. No, well, I don't have that in there. No,
Yeah,
you got the. You have the latest.
yes.
What is it?
Let me guess, it went up.
That would be correct.
How about
Always does.
how about Essex County Tech?
Essex is the same as last year for now.
Okay.
There are 4 children, we go, 4 children.
Right.
$20,000
And one of them is a senior,
That's right.
but they can't give us the actual figure until the fall, when they have enrollments.
I know.
So I was just going with 4 students. But we have 5 new Whittier students at 18,500. So that's, extra 92,
So, it's
the Whittier number is, 611,884.
okay.
Survey says,
Oh, I'm at the wrong place. Yeah.
yes.
Regional school transportation is being cut, so they're.
243,016.
Bingo.
Life is good.
Still the same, well,
Save.
Well, it's not good, but at
Yeah.
least it
Same
ties.
number.
At least we,
At least it ties out.
Save.
we're on the same.
Save.
listen to her, Steve.
Save that.
Okay.
Save us all.
Can
All
you-
right.
all right, so can you email that to me tonight or something?
Sure.
I'm sure I have a flash drive and I'll throw it on another flash drive.
Oh, all right, great. You know, I think we ought to have a flash drive with the budget on it, and then we make changes to that.
That's fine, I've got plenty of flash drives, so. if
Okay,
you
I
can
probably
email-
have 2, but I got stuff on them. We need just one flash drive with nothing on it.
I think I have one at home, a small
With
flash
nothing
drive
on it?
I got from a
Did you
trade
s-
show, that I can just throw the budget on, Mike, and then after we make all the changes, go back to you, and then actually we can probably just use that in the future, then make that the next one, and that way we have all the changes and the notes to it, so I'm pretty sure I have one at home.
Did you see, Mike was showing me a hard drive that Howard Snyder
Thumb
has.
drive.
Thumb drive. It sticks out of the USB drive about 1/4 of an inch,
They're getting
and it's
tiny.
16 gigs.
Yeah.
It's just like the head of a pin, maybe a little bigger, but not much. It's amazing.
Lose that in no time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you leave it in there, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's right. You would lose it.
Okay, any other questions, comments? We're meeting the next 2 Wednesday nights.
Yeah. So we're gonna
18th and
continue.
25th.
So when you say you're gonna get this out this week, you're gonna send. that-
I am gonna email her that file, the top file, not all of them. You don't want you want all department budgets as well. Here, this is
Yeah,
what it
just-
is. You want everything?
Yeah,
Here, this is what it would be. It's that
what
folder,
size is it?
and this is the one we're looking at. That one.
Okay, so just right click on changed and see how big that is.
It's not big. 1.34 megs. That's
Oh,
not big.
That's not big at all. Yeah, just.
You want the whole thing?
Yeah. I don't
Well,
think you can
okay.
email. I don't think you can email as a folder though.
No, you can't. I can put them out there. I did that once already. I sent that out to everybody.
You missed
Yeah.
me. That's all right.
I didn't miss you. You're on there. Don't be saying things like that.
Yeah, if you can,
Should all be using your new,
Oh,
Town
yeah.
email.
I haven't. I should
Oh,
do that.
what
You're
is
right.
our
Oh,
town
don't
email?
I didn't
give me-
even know I
I'm not
had
doing any
one.
more emails. Don't email it to me. I don't exist anymore.
I didn't know I
Oh,
had one.
stop.
I didn't know that
Stop.
I know I had one.
You know something? Are you?
Yeah,
Here we go.
so how do we,
Wayne Snow, you're in my. What's your email address?
WSnow77.
Why are you telling me?
Oh.
It's on TV now.
I'm
W
gonna have to, I don't know how to
77.
get, how do you do?
Verizon.
Well,
Oh. The least you could do is tell me.
I've told you
Janet
that. and I've
sent
sent you
them
that
to
two or
the-
three times.
Did you?
Chairs?
the chairs.
Yeah.
And with the instructions.
Okay, I should probably open that and read it.
You probably should.
Okay, it's
We
W
were
Duly
gonna go
noted.
live on the
So-
16th.
77
Yeah.
at Verizon.
.net.
No.
But what happens with the rest of the board? So stuff is supposed to get directed just to the chair?
No, everybody gets their own email.
Everybody gets their own email?
Yeah, we all have our own email.
Oh dear
It's
God,
just-
I already have like 8 emails.
It's a georgetown.gov email.
Why did it do that?
Okay, who is,
Me. Sorry. I turned it on during the break. I'll make sure it's
Someone
over.
texting you?
okay, so the 18th, I'm going to send an email, to CPC.
Oh. Okay.
I'm probably gonna request CPC to actually come on the 25th now, to give Ed Doby so he can be here a couple more weeks so he can get
Oh,
better,
okay.
okay?
Yeah, he should be here for
No,
that.
no, no,
'cause he's
right,
on,
so I
yeah.
think what we'll do is next Wednesday, we will start hammering away at the budget. So that way we can also look at
That's right. You said you were.
the snow and ice, the free cash, and any of the
Oh,
articles. And I think, Mike, you had suggested Monday night to the selectmen to keep all the articles on right now, just in case some things change or anything happens. So that way, because we can just pass over them at town meeting. If there's any, we don't really want to eliminate this, even if we're not gonna fund them, if something doesn't happen. And so we'll start looking at that to come up with our suggestions and our recommendations to the board for the warrant, and then start plowing through that. I will also, yeah,
I mean, that is freaky.
right, the ones that were definitely, that were moved around. I will create the tracking form for the warrant that we've done before, so that way, the spreadsheet for the tracking form, we get that out to everybody. That way we can see what we need to vote on, and unfortunately, I think that there's just,
There's no voting either.
yeah.
It won't
Do we
it.
have also, the other big thing is, has Peter been able to get a better estimate what his total costs are gonna be? At this point, I mean, because he didn't have all the bills in quite yet.
Yeah, I updated the,
And
Selectmen-
this does not include filling the salt shed?
no, there's no money to fill the salt.
No.
We've used all our free cash plus $3,500.
Right,
Plus 35.
yeah, we were in the whole 3,500 on Saturday.
Oh, 3,500. Oh, that's right, yeah.
Right,
I
but
thought you were saying 35,000.
that's what I mean,
No.
but is that, are we,
What's it,
is
Phil's
that
shed?
it, or has he still got some other stuff coming in?
No, that's all in right now, as long as it
Yeah, yeah, it
doesn't
doesn't.
snow again.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the snow,
Supposed to get some snow this weekend.
Rain. It's mostly going to rain, I
good.
think, yeah.
but the other,
Not really.
but the other issue,
He still has to treat the road.
Exactly.
If it
Worse.
freezes, it's more
Oh.
expensive
Yeah, because he's got a
for
sand.
ice than it is for snow.
yeah. But then the other thing is
Because the
that,
material's involved, right?
Yeah.
Right.
the other thing is if you could also ask Peter, as the snow starts, over the next couple of weeks, as the snow starts to go down, to start looking at, what are we looking at for damage?
For the roads. Yeah,
Roads, the
are
frost
a
heaves
mess.
was so bad, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
just,
It
they're
is
just,
bad. The
it's
frost.
Well, the heaves really haven't started yet.
That's right, because
We just have potholes.
yeah, that's
oh
right.
no, I've started seeing some changes
Yeah,
on certain
but
roads
the-
already, yeah. They're,
Parking lot, they tried.
They'll be up by St. Patrick's Day.
Super.
Parking lot today, it's like-
does anybody have anything else? Any other comments?
No.
I'll entertain, Gary, you all set? All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Thank you for joining us tonight. Our meeting is now adjourned at 9:12. Thank you.